Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and welcome on in to Kaldheim preview season. It's finally time, we're here, and I'm excited for you to see what's going on in this set. And one mechanic that is returning after a very long time away from Standard is Snow. But what's the history of Snow? How did it end up in Kaldheim? And what's a bit of what you can expect out of Snow here? Well, let's talk about it today. To tell the story of Snow, let's roll the clocks all the way back to 1995. Back when I was still busy dressing up as a bear snake, Ice Age came out, and with it, the Snow mechanic. Admittedly, it came out in June, which is a weird time for a Snow-themed set, but I digress. Now, the set was about Dominaria going through an Ice Age, and as you might expect, there was a huge environmental kind of theme in how the cards looked. And really late in the design process, there were a bunch of cards that had to get changed around, and so an entire new mechanic was created. 5 snow lands, and cards that reference the snow lands. These were just like basic lands, except they said they were snow-covered lands. You could play as many of them as you wanted in a deck, and so on. Now, of the 363 cards in Ice Age that are not basic lands, only 28 of them are cards that reference snow in some way. And of those 28 cards, about half of them punish you for playing snowlands. And the remaining 14 that are good if you have snowlands, well, a lot of them are nothing to write home about. So as a result, Snow was not a super strong mechanic from the get-go. This, by the way, is one of the classic problems with adding a mechanic into your set really late in the game. You don't have enough time to balance it and get it right, and you probably have to put in a bunch of hate cards just in case you got it wrong. So all in all, this version of Snow was not very strong. So it had a lot of resonance, but the mechanic was mostly a dud. Well, this is something that can lead well into nostalgia, and that's exactly what happened. The years went on and many players reminisced about their snow-covered lands, even though the cards weren't that strong. And so in 2006, 11 years after we saw Snow in Ice Age and Alliances, we get Coldsnap. The spiritual third set in the Ice Age block, this set brought back Snow, and made a few changes. They were no longer just snow-covered lands, that was their name, but now they had a whole new super type, Snow. And it could appear not only on lands, but on creatures and enchantments and any other kind of permanent as well. Writing Snow instead of snow-covered both saved room on the type line and also made a lot more sense for creatures. I mean, couldn't the creatures just shake off all the snow they were covered with? No. But the big thing to happen was a brand new mana symbol, and this was huge, the Snow mana symbol. This is any mana that is generated by a snow permanent. So a snow land, absolutely, but also cards like Boreal Druid make snow mana. And while we didn't see any snow mana in the mana costs of cards, we saw a bunch of snow mana on activated abilities. And this was especially interesting in draft because the rule was you had to draft your snow lands, and this was generally a hit. Players really enjoyed the minigame of how high you should pick a snow land in a draft. Now, Snow was pretty good in Coldsnap. Cards like Scrying Sheets and Scred really saw a decent amount of play, and the number of hate cards for Snow basic lands was tuned down quite a bit. Zombie Musher isn't exactly breaking any records for strong cards. On the whole, Snow was received pretty well in Coldsnap, but it wouldn't come back anytime soon, except for a couple stray cards like Centaur Omen Reader from Future Sight and Oran Frostfang. We wouldn't see Snow again for 13 more years in Modern Horizons 1. By the way, other longtime players, if you would suddenly like to feel very, very old, let it be known that more time elapsed between Coldsnap and Modern Horizons than did between Ice Age and Coldsnap. That's wild. Anyway, Snow returns in Modern Horizons, which actually makes a lot of sense because the modern format already has Snow in it. And there are a lot of strong new cards. It works out pretty well in Limited, and once again, the idea of drafting your lands and how to evaluate that ends up being pretty popular. And in Constructed, it ends up pretty strong in Modern, some cards more than others. Now, one trend that Modern Horizons followed from Coldsnap was ratcheting down the number of Snow hate cards even further, all the way down to 0. And this had a very kind of unintended impact on Modern, where suddenly some players would argue that it was always correct to play Snow basics in your deck, because you could bluff having Snow and having them wouldn't hurt you in any meaningful way. And I think this is a good time to mention that I did hear feedback about this. You know, we make a lot of awesome versions of basic lands, and some players definitely felt like now they were very, very slightly disadvantaged for using them over Snow lands just because they could bluff Snow cards being in their deck otherwise. So thank you all for sending that in with Modern Horizons 1, and it was definitely something on our minds. So we're working on Kaldheim, And if there was ever a place to bring snow back into standard, this has got to be it. I mean, it's such a traditionally snowy setting. There's going to be snow everywhere, and it just made total sense to bring it back here. So we took a lot of lessons about snow that we've learned in the past, and we applied them here. For example, you're still going to be drafting the snow lands out of your booster packs because players have found that generally fun. We're also bringing back Snow Mana, as that one has been pretty popular in the past and plays pretty well. But with that said, we're not doing any colorless cards that cost just Snow Mana to cast. We also took some of the feedback about the ubiquity of the snow basic lands from Modern Horizons into account. And while we do want snow to mostly be upside, we thought it was important to address some of those players' concerns. And so there is one noteworthy card at rare that does punish your opponents for playing snow basic lands. It is just one card, so it might not necessarily address the feedback, but I'm definitely curious to see what you think when the card is previewed. But it's not just all old lessons either. There's some brand new tricks this time around. First of all, we've got a new snow frame, which looks awesome, and you'll hear more about next week on the show, so I don't want to scoop it too much. But second of all, we've got snow spells, instants, and sorceries. These just made a lot of sense. If you're building a snow deck with cards that care about your snow cards, well, you want your instants and sorceries to also be snow. For example, if you're using scrying sheets, it's cool that you can put these in your deck and not miss when you hit them, despite caring about snow cards. Sorry, Scred, you'll never be snow. But what I'm really curious to know is what you all think about this. Are you excited, happy, sad, nostalgic? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll talk with you again on Monday with more about Kaldheim. And in the meantime, may you have a lot of fun playing in the snow. You got this.
So it's always a fun and interesting time doing doing makeup, just adding the mascara, making sure it looks nice and dry, and then going over with a final pop of highlighter on my cheeks, as well as on the ridge of my nose.
And any lipstick tips as people are applying their lipstick?
Just go with the natural line of your lips. If you